This is A1, the Imperialism group.
Good day.
Imperialism, extending a country's power and influence to colonization by the use of military. Imperialism has been around since the 1870s. However, it has continued and was the main reason of World War I. There's been many instances of imperialism. For example, the Scramble of Africa during World War I. The Scramble of Africa occurred during 1818 and 1914, and it was between the major European powers such as France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, Britain, etc. Do these nations seem familiar? Yes, they do, because all these European powers who fought for Africa also fought in World War I. Each nation scrambled to own a piece of Africa. France and Britain owned majority of Africa. It is very evident to see the connection of how imperialism led to World War I, because Africa was a so-called platform where these nations could fight and expand their territory. This may seem like militarism, and in some way it is, because without military this wouldn't be a problem. However, the mindset of conquering and growing your nation was instead the cause, even without the support of military. We're not saying that nationalism, militarism, and alliances didn't contribute to World War I, but however, imperialism was the core that started it all. The Scramble of Africa illustrates that European powers were hungry because they attacked a non-violent nation and lost many of their natural resources. If all of this was happening in Africa, imagine what happened in Europe. Thank you.
Afries. Pause, please.
Am I supposed to go?
Just one moment, please. You may begin.
Hi, A1 Ratner History Blog. I'm here to talk about imperialism in Europe. Imperialism is a policy of extending a country's power and influence through colonization, use of military force, or other means. This is exactly what Austria-Hungary was doing in its home continent of Europe. Before the beginning of the Great War, Austria-Hungary was busy causing trouble with its neighboring countries, one of which was Serbia. Austria-Hungary used imperialistic tactics over Serbia, causing boiling blood between the two countries. Because of the worsening conditions that Austria-Hungary was forcing upon Serbia, one of which being the suppression of anti-Austrian propaganda, the Serbian people wanted to revolt. This led to a Serbian extremist group called the Black Hand assassinating Archduke Ferdinand and his wife on June 28, 1914. On July 28, 1914, a month after Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. As Austria-Hungary was the first country to declare war in World War I, imperialism was the cause of the alliances being used in World War I and the true cause of the Great War. Thank you.
May I start?
Just one moment, please. You may begin.
There are a variety of causes behind the start of World War I. However, imperialism is by far much more impactful cause than nationalism. Imperialism had caused conflict between European nations outside and within Europe. Contests for colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Americas had caused conflict between European imperial powers. And why would these European nations want to create colonies? Because colonies are not just used for nationalistic propaganda. They serve as strategic trade ports. They provide huge amounts of wealth such as spices and slaves. And they also provide the European nation with a large population of consumers. Imperialism can bring huge economical benefits to a nation. Also in Europe, the Ottoman Empire once had a sphere of influence over the Balkan area. After the Ottoman Empire began to face internal conflicts, there was a political vacuum over the Balkan area, which caused different nations to clash over creating their sphere of influence in the Balkans. Europe originally had a non-formal agreement called the Balance of Power, which aimed to prevent one nation from dominating Europe. However, the political vacuum in the Balkans had created conflict of interests between other European nations, breaking the fragile peace in Europe. On the other hand, nationalism is a radical ideology with the belief that one nation is superior to others. Its impact on the war was more significant regarding being used as state propaganda to encourage citizens to support the war after World War I had started. Nationalism may be useful concerning manipulating citizens to support the government, but government certainly does not need citizen support to declare wars. The topic of this debate is the primary cause of the war, and nationalism is more of a factor that more impacted the duration of the war. Certain people may argue that nationalism is a primary cause of World War I because the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was done by a Serbian nationalist. However, the assassination by itself would not have sparked World War I if there were no underlying causes that caused the conflict to erupt, and the main underlying factor is imperialism. In conclusion, imperialism heavily outweighs nationalism regarding its impact on the start of World War I. Thank you.
Alliances between European powers were one of the greatest factors of the Big War, but imperialism had a larger impact, making it the primary cause of World War I. Not only did France control many African colonies, but the British extended to 5 continents, taking over an abundant amount of places. According to History.com, new industrial and manufacturing technologies created the need to dominate new territories and their natural resources, including oil, rubber, coal, iron, and other raw materials. Germany only had a small amount of African territory compared to the other powers in Europe. Tension rose as there was always a need for more territory for the powers, and the more territory they had, the more powerful they were considered. Power and strength were very important to the European powers before the war, showing that imperialism originally brought up tension between the European wars. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria traveled to Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, inspecting forces in Herzegovina and Bosnia, which was annexed by Austria-Hungary. Because of Austria's imperialism, Serbians were furious, believing that territory should be a part of Serbia because of the similar language spoken and the imperialism of Austria-Hungary. This then led to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, assassinated by a member of the Black Hand, Gavrilo Princip. This assassination sparked the war because Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia government for the assassination. Russia had Serbia's back while Austria had Germany's help. Austria then declared war on Serbia. Alliances are the actions of people or groups of people with an agreement and joined together to help each other. In this case, an agreement between European powers to back each other up during conflict. This only happened after Serbians believed that Herzegovina and Bosnia should be a part of Serbia, showing that alliances were actually a result of imperialism.
Okay, so let's just think about what was being said so far. We've debunked what nationalism has said, we've debunked militarism as a cause, and we've not yet heard from alliances, but we've had a pretty good go at them. So, really the evidence backing all of us up, and really showing you that imperialism is indeed the cause of World War I, is the fact that way before the war even started, the countries that were then involved in the war were having miniature conflicts over colonies within the African continent. This is imperialism. We also heard about how beneficial to a country's financial state imperialism is. and probably the cause of why they wanted to go and fight over these small overseas colonies in the continents of Africa, Asia, and these other places. So let's just think. If tensions were already rising within these overseas colonies, and militaries and navies were being built up so that they could have better control and conquer more overseas territories, it means that imperialism really is causing so much tension, and so okay, let's think about it this way. You're in a neighborhood, right? You go to school, there's fighting and stuff like that. You come home, the person you're fighting with is right next door. At some point, the fighting at school is going to come back to your house, and at some point, fists is going to start being thrown through the doors and through the neighborhoods, and fighting will happen in the streets. So the point being is the thing in Africa was not going to stay there for very long. And we can see this happening in Serbia with the annexation by Austria-Hungary of certain parts of the Balkan states. Serbia then got very angry, as we all heard, and then nationalistic groups, angry with the imperialistic control over certain regions of territory that was the imperialistic state I'm referencing is the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Then got angry and decided to assassinate the Ferdinand dude. My point being is imperialism built up tensions outside that then translated into tensions within Europe itself. Those tensions finally broke, leading to an assassination, which indeed caused the war. Now, yes, the navies were built up. Yes, nationalism was part of it. But in the end, imperialism was really the driving route behind all the build-up of the military and all these nationalistic groups. Thank you.
Okay, and let's acknowledge the imperialism